There's a version of leadership that a lot of people are chasing. It looks impressive, it's fast, it's productive, it's always on, yet it's also exhausting. And so I have found as a small business coach, a leader, and someone who deeply believes in designing a life on purpose, is that most leaders don't struggle because they lack ambition, intelligence, or work ethic. They struggle because they're missing the foundations that allow success to actually feel good and last. I'm Shayla Wey, and I have coached leaders who are doing all the right things on paper, hitting goals, growing teams, building businesses, and still feel overwhelmed, disconnected, or quietly burnt out. And I've also seen leaders with far less strategy thrive because they've built the right internal and structural support. So today, I want to talk about 3 things that I found every leader truly needs to thrive. Not hustle tactics, not hacks, not pressure-filled advice, but the foundations that support leadership, fulfillment, and growth personally and professionally. Because when these 3 things are in place, dreams stop feeling like something you're chasing and start feeling like something you're steadily building. So let's dive into the first one. Well, the first thing is internal leadership and really taking ownership of leading yourself first. The first thing I found every leader really needs to thrive is strong internal leadership. For a long time, I thought leadership was about direction, vision, and execution. And while those things matter, what I've also found is that leadership actually begins inside. Internal leadership is your ability to trust yourself, regulate your emotions, make decisions without spiraling, staying grounded even when things feel uncertain. And I've noticed that the leaders who struggle the most aren't the ones lacking skill. They're the ones constantly questioning themselves. Every decision feels heavy. Every setback feels personal, and every pause feels like failure. When internal leadership is weak, external leadership becomes exhausting. And this is why I love the work of Brené Brown, especially Dare to Lead. One of the biggest takeaways from her research is that self-trust is the foundation of courageous leadership. And that resonates deeply with what I've seen. Leaders who trust themselves don't need constant reassurance. They can hold discomfort without collapsing. They can make cleaner, faster decisions. And this also aligns with emotional intelligence research, which consistently shows that leaders with strong self-regulation outperform technically skilled leaders who are reactive or emotionally volatile. And so what I have found is that when leaders strengthen their internal leadership, everything else becomes lighter. They stop outsourcing confidence, they stop needing permission, they stop shrinking in uncertainty, and leadership becomes something they embody, not something that they perform. The second thing is that fulfillment built into the journey is different versus just going after the destination. And so I have found that what every leader needs to thrive is that fulfillment that exists now and not someday. And this one really changed my life. I used to believe that fulfillment came after success, after the goal, after the milestone, after that next level. And what I found is that leaders who postpone fulfillment don't suddenly arrive there. They burn out fast, and fulfillment isn't a reward, it's a regulator. And this is something that really clicked for me when I read Designing Your Life by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. It's the idea that you don't wait for the perfect future to feel fulfilled. You design fulfillment into your present. And that's such a massive shift. Okay? And science will also back this up. Burnout research shows that burnout isn't caused primarily by workload. It's caused by lack of meaning, autonomy, and alignment. So in other words, leaders don't burn out because they're busy. They burn out because what they're building no longer feels connected to who they are. And so what I have found is that fulfilled leaders lead with more patience. They make better decisions. They really stay connected to their why. And fulfillment shows up in small, intentional ways. Protecting your energy, letting success include rest, building a business that supports your life instead of consuming it. And when fulfillment is present, leadership stops feeling so heavy and it starts to feel really purposeful again. And the third thing is that sustainable growth is not exhausting when you expand it. And so every leader needs to be able to have a sustainable approach to their growth in order to really thrive. And growth itself doesn't break leaders, exhaustion does. And I've seen leaders with incredible potential stall, not because they aren't capable, but because their growth model requires them to be on all of the time. There's constant output, constant pressure, constant comparison. And one of the books that I referenced in other episodes as well that really shaped my thinking here is Essentialism by Greg McKeown. Because the idea that growth doesn't always come from doing more, it comes from doing what actually matters. And I know that I speak to that a lot, but neuroscience supports this too. And studies on cognitive load and decision fatigue show that when leaders are constantly making decisions without systems or structure, clarity drops and stress increases. And sustainable growth looks a lot more like having clear priorities, systems that reduce that mental load, having support that expands capacity. And I've learned, and what I've found is that leaders who grow sustainably think long term. They can bounce back faster from setbacks, and they can stay emotionally available for the people that they lead. And so growth doesn't need to feel rushed to be powerful. It needs to be intentional. And so when growth is built this way, leaders don't just reach goals, they stay aligned once they get there. And so how do all of these work together? Well, here's what's really powerful about these three things is when intentional leadership is strong, fulfillment is present, and growth is sustainable, leadership becomes grounded and life feels aligned. Dreams feel achievable instead of overwhelming. And this is where fulfillment, leadership, and growth stop being separate ideas and they start working together. And this is what thriving actually looks like. So if this episode resonates, and if you're craving leadership that feels grounded, fulfilling, and sustainable, I want to invite you into something I created specifically for leaders like you. I run a free community called the LFG Business Academy on Skool, where we go deeper into leading yourself like a CEO, building fulfillment into your work and life, creating systems for scalable, sustainable growth. And inside the community, you'll also get access to my free mini leadership series, which breaks down how to raise your leadership standard without burning out. It's completely free and you can join through the link in the show notes. But thank you for spending this time with me today. If this episode supported you, share it with another leader who's building something meaningful. Because your dream life doesn't start just someday. It starts with the way that you lead, the way that you live, and how you grow. I'll see you next time on your Dream Coach podcast.